Hey, what's going on YouTube? Today we're going to update our Vayne AD carry guide.
Let us hunt those who have fallen to darkness.
Vayne is a late game hyper carry with high mobility. She's able to reposition very well in team fights with her tumble in her ultimate form, which gives a short duration stealth. She's even got some true damage in her kit from her silver bolts, which means she can deal with even the tankiest of champions. With her kit and high damage, she becomes one of the best duelists late game, which makes her one of the best split pushers out there. The biggest problem, however, is her weak lane phase and pretty short range. This also comes with low base health, which means you're going to really struggle early on. Vayne, however, is one of those champions who becomes stronger and stronger as the game progresses and eventually will turn into a monster. For her Masteries, Thunderlords is no longer the best option. We now opt for Fervor of Battle and go 18 Ferocity, of course, to grab that, and 12 Cunning. The only alternatives I would list for this mastery page would be taking Feast instead for a bit more lane sustain. You'd also lose out on 3% bonus damage, but hey, at least you wouldn't take 1.5% more. Another would be grabbing Oppressor if you were with a lot of CC champions. Now you do have your own CC, but it is somewhat unreliable. People do have to be by walls, but it is one that you could pick up instead. Other than that, these are great masteries for increasing your damage, getting a bit more sustain, and all that other good stuff AD carries want. For our rune page, we go for the very traditional AD carry runes, getting attack damage reds, armor yellows, magic resist blues, and attack speed quints. These runes are a very good way of increasing your DPS as much as possible, yet remaining somewhat tanky for all that damage you're going to take in trades. The only alternatives I would consider would be taking attack speed blues instead of the magic resist, but this would only be if there's not many AP champions on the enemy team. Generally, you'll be against a support champion that does do at least some AP damage, which is why I do tend to go for the magic resist blues instead. For our summoner spells, you pretty much always want to go for Flash and Heal. Flash is good for escaping bad situations, chasing to finish off a kill, and it even allows you to make flashy plays like flashing forward for an angle to condemn somebody into a wall. Heal is then by far the best option for your other summoner on bot lane, since you can save either yourself or your lane partner. When you activate Heal, you even get a short duration movement speed buff, which can be great for getting out of bad situations as well. As for alternatives, well, there's not any. Now we're going to look at each of the abilities, starting with your passive, Night Hunter. Very simply, when you are within a 2000 range of a nearby visible enemy champion, you gain 30 bonus movement speed. If you are in your ultimate form, however, Final Hour, this is increased to 90. So this passive right here is one of the reasons you are so mobile in teamfights. Not only do you have Tumble for its short roll, but now you're pretty much always going to have some bonus movement speed in a team fight, unless of course you're running away. This is generally just great for moving around team fights or chasing down those low targets that are trying to flee from you, which usually doesn't work out too good for them. Next up is your Q, Tumble. So basically you roll towards your cursor, and your next basic attack within 7 seconds deals bonus damage. This also resets your auto attack timer, which is a great way of comboing some extra damage. Follow this right after an auto attack to get off 2 very fast attacks. As we talked about on the pros and cons, you do get stealth for 1 second when you cast this when you are in your ultimate. This is a great way of repositioning, as people won't see you unless there is a pink word or some other stealth reveal dropped in the area. Now as Vayne, you either max your Q or W first. Generally, we do want to max our W first for the extra damage, but if you are against a very skill shot heavy team, you may want to take Tumble for its very short 2-second cooldown. This will allow you to dodge all sorts of different skill shots and make you insanely hard to get on top of. So here is that other ability you may want to max first, W, Silver Bolts. So your basic attacks and abilities mark her target with Silver Bolts for 3 seconds and stacks up to 3 times. Now if you do attack a different target, these will get reset, so generally you'll want to try to get off those 3 attacks before switching targets. When you land your 3rd attack, it consumes all of those and deals true damage, which is based off of percentage of target's maximum health. This makes her a fantastic pick against teams that have stuff like Mundo, which are generally really tanky and hard for other AD carries to bring down sometimes. So like I said, this does work on abilities and auto attacks. One way of proccing this really fast would be doing an auto attack, followed by a tumble, and then a condemn. This takes only honestly like a second to get off, and is a really fast way of proccing a bunch of damage on somebody. So speaking of condemn, here it is, and it's always the ability we max last. When you use this ability, you knock somebody back, and, like I said, apply Silver Bolts. The better part of the ability though is when you knock them into a wall, they take that damage again and are stunned for 1.5 seconds. This is a way to get off a ton of damage and pretty much ensure that you do win that fight. The ability isn't as good as our Q and W, however, but we do get 1 point in it early on, so we can actually apply this CC and little zone tool if you use it to push somebody away. Last but not least is our ultimate, Final Hour. When you activate the ability, you will gain between 30 and 70 AD, which lasts between 8 and 12 seconds. This also triples Night Hunter's movement speed bonus and gives Tumble a 1 second duration stealth. So yeah, those are great, but all this AD is pretty fantastic as well. Even if you are straight up weaker than the enemy AD carry you're facing, this could push you over the edge and give you quite the advantage. Make sure you proc this early on in a team fight and use your stealth tumble to get onto targets you need to. It's also great for peeling away from enemy champions trying to get on top of you, since they won't be able to see you during those tumbles. Other than that, in the bot lane, make sure you activate this when your support champion goes in for an engage, so you get a big advantage over the enemy team. For our ability order, we of course max our ultimate first at 6, 11, and 16. Now generally, for all the damage it provides, our first basic ability we want to max is our W, Silver Bolts. You may, however, want to consider maxing Tumble first if you're against a very high skill shot team. This will lower the cooldown a lot and allow you to dodge a lot more abilities. The trade-off, however, is the fact that you do a lot less sustained damage until you got points into your Silver Bolts. Either way though, our last ability we max is our Condemn. We do take one at level 2, so we can actually push people into walls and CC them. So here are a few AD carry tips, and first, generally you want to focus on CSing and not trading too much as Vayne. Don't try to trade too much if you're just going to end up losing some CS. When the enemy team has backed, try and push the wave under the enemy turret so they do lose XP and gold. Next, make sure you track the summoner cooldown so you know when you want to go for a fight or ask for a gank. You'll also want to know how to itemize. You may need armor penetration early in some games if the enemy team is stacking armor early, and you may not need it till very late if they're not grabbing it until later. When farming and fighting, make sure you're constantly moving so you have a better chance of dodging skill shots. Last but not least, try to learn champion power spikes. Know when they have the advantage and when you do as well. Know when you can trade and when you need to try to avoid trading. Vayne has a lot of hard matchups in the lane phase, but here are 3 of the hardest ones. So first is the very popular meta pick, Ashe. She outranges you and is even able to zone you somewhat, so you miss some CS. She can then even slow you down pretty much permanently, so her support can lock you down. Make sure you position behind minions so her W doesn't hit you and poke you down over the duration of lane phase. She's very immobile, so ask for ganks from your jungler. Next is Caitlyn, and she's hard because she has really long auto attack range and she can zone you with her traps and net. You'll want to try to get as much CS in the lane as you can and look to kill her in duels once you have your core build. Make sure you avoid as much harass as you can and respect her range advantage. Last is Misfortune, and you want to make sure you avoid her bounce Q at all costs because this will take a massive chunk out of your health pool. Early on, make sure you avoid trades at all costs because she'll pretty much always beat you no matter what you do unless your support champion does something awesome. She's yet again a very immobile champion, so try to get ganks from your jungler if she pushes the lane. Keep in mind as well that you can use your Condemn to cancel her ultimate, but don't run into it to try to stop it. Vayne is a good split pusher, and later on she becomes a pretty good team fighter as well. Knowing when to split push and when to look for team fights is very important. Split pushing is most effective when you know you can't win a team fight, but you have enough wave clear to stop them from pushing into your base, even with a numbers disadvantage. This will stall the game until your team is strong enough to go for a straight up team fight. Now you're not always going to be able to split push, especially if the enemy team has champions that are stronger than you that they can send to 1v1. You do excel at 1v1s, but other champions do as well, especially if they have more farm than you. When you know you finally have the bigger advantage in a team fight, try to force them whenever you can and then look for objectives if you do win them. So last is our item build, and it starts with a Doran's Blade, Health Potion, and Warding Totem. For our core build, we want a Blade of the Ruined King, Phantom Dancer, followed by Berserker Greaves. After the whole rapid fire cannon and static shiv no longer stacking nerf bullshit, this is by far the best core build for Vayne. This gives you basically everything you need, some early sustain to get through that lane phase, some nice attack speed, movement speed, crit, all that good stuff. You then get that awesome extra damage on Blade of the Ruined King and that activate so you can kite some champions trying to get on top of you. For our offensive items, there is of course Infinity Edge, which I pretty much grab every single game as it makes Vayne do a ton of damage and really bursty with Silver Bolts. If you're planning on doing a lot of split push, Static Shiv is still a great item and can replace Phantom Dancer if you want to, push the waves a little bit faster. Next are the 2 armor penetration items. You can get LDR for extra damage or the Mortal Reminder for the grievous wounds. Yumu's Ghostblade is still a great item on Vayne. The Activate makes you even stronger in 1v1 duels. Then there's the Bloodthirster. It makes you just a tiny bit tankier, some nice sustain, and a lot of damage. Just a great item as well. For our defensive items, first is the Mercurial Scimitar. By far my favorite defensive item there is. I get it almost all the time if there is at least some sort of CC on the enemy team. If you're against a high CC team, you may want to get a Banshee's Veil so you can block multiple in a very long duration fight. Guardian Angel is then of course great for coming back to life, and Maw and Sterax Gauge are also great for the shields that they can provide. For our example full build, we take our core and then add an Infinity Edge, Mercurial Scimitar, and LDR. This gives you just an assload of damage, a nice cleanse from the Mercurial Scimitar, and some armor penetration from LDR. This is by far my favorite Vayne build, and I do get it most of the time, but of course sometimes you have to mix in different items depending on the enemy team you're fighting. So that pretty much covers everything for our AD Carry Vayne guide in patch 6.15. If you guys enjoyed the video, please make sure you like and subscribe, and of course remember that we do skin giveaways on our Twitter at egaming_TV, so if you're interested in winning free skins, make sure you head over there and send us a follow. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Peace.